So here is one of the more interesting finds of the lot of 40 mowers that I got a few months ago. It appears this is one of the regular Murrays that has a 450 series Briggs & Stratton engine on it, but it looked like it got damaged in transit or something. Something really crashed down on the top of this engine. As you can see, I haven't done anything to it. This bracket here that holds on the pull rope got bent. It hit the flywheel and took off one of the fan blades on the flywheel. It's bent the exhaust shield a little bit here, and actually severed the ground wire for the blade brake. Thankfully, I've got quite a few parts. Hopefully, we're going to try and get this thing back together. Also, like it twisted the deck around a little bit here, so I'll have to bend that back. Just kind of get everything straight on it. Hopefully, it won't be too difficult, and I'll have to find one of these handles. I've kind of run out of them because there are a few of them that were missing, but I've got a bunch of them in the stash that I've got here, and I've already thrown the pull rope away, but you can see that it kind of obliterated the pull rope mechanism as well as the top cover of the engine. But apart from that, everything was there, and as you can see, this is a brand new mower that hasn't been used, so it was definitely damaged in transit somehow, not damaged while it was getting cut. But yeah, I'll just pull a handle off of my stash here of a bunch of handles that I've accumulated over the years that have really come in handy, whether it's handle bolts, which I did need for a few of my mowers in the lot, or whether it's the actual handle itself here. So working on this Murray here that got damaged in transit, and the deck got bent down some, and it got bent down pretty good. I looked up under here and tried to turn the blade, and as you can see, it's hitting on the side, so I'm going to have to bend out the deck just like I thought. It won't even turn, or I don't really want to turn it too much to damage the paint since it's a brand new mower. But yep, so I have to pull the deck out just like I suspected. Digging into this one a little bit further, I actually see that here on the bottom end of the engine, where it mounts to the mower, right here near where the blade key or the shaft comes to the blade key. I don't know if you can see that mower is, or that it's got a nice long crack in there in the block. So I will have to do a little bit more than I originally thought on this one, taking off the block and putting a new one on that I have hopefully from one of my spare engines. So the mower doesn't have any oil or gas in it, so I turned it on its side. I got the deck pulled out good enough to where it's not hitting anymore, so we're in good shape there. And just turned the blade to see if there was any compressions, see if I should even worry about fixing it. And of course there is, which is a good sign. So still got quite a little bit of ways to go, but we'll keep on working on it. So on these newer mowers, the bracket that holds on the pull rope mechanism is actually bolted under the flywheel here, so you actually have to take the flywheel off to get to this to take it off. Flywheel needed to come off anyway because of the broken tooth, so I've got my 15/16 socket blade stop tool, and we just take it off. So I've got the flywheel off. It's pretty easy to get off. Just kind of wedged a large screwdriver in there and gave it a couple gentle taps. You do not want to break the flywheel on it. Hitting it at the top with the bolt didn't quite get it off. But as you can see, there are your 5 bolts that are holding on our bracket for the pull rope. We'll get those off. Hopefully there's no damage under there. We'll see. So I got this bracket off that was really bent. I didn't realize it actually doubles as a seal for the breather tube here. But as you can see, that's the extent of the damage. There's nothing beyond this little bracket here that got damaged except for the bottom of the engine, which I showed you earlier. We're going to go ahead and replace this ground wire while we're down here, and I'll get my donor engine and get everything back on. So here's my donor engine from one of the mowers that was blown up. There's a remnant of the piston there. As you can see, it got pretty obliterated in there. Not planning on putting this engine back together, so I'm going to take the flywheel off, take the bracket off on it, and put it on this other engine. So I got my flywheel and bracket and also this ground wire off of my donor engine here. We're going to put it on the mower over there. So I got everything back on the mower. Got the bracket on there. Those are just 5/16 bolts. Your 15/16 nut. But you got to make sure you tighten down pretty good. You got your flywheel and then also this pull rope grabber mechanism here that was also broke on the mower that I snagged off the donor mower. And just remember, when you're putting your flywheel on, have your brake back so that you don't have any resistance when you're taking it off and putting it back on. For me, I just disconnected the spring here. I'll put that back on now and put the pull rope on. So I got the gas tank back on, which just slid right over that bracket that holds on this pull rope. Got the pull rope back on, and now we're looking a whole lot better, looking a whole lot more like a lawnmower now. Still got to straighten out a few things and got to get that bottom end of the block that's cracked, put another one on there, and that's what we'll do next. So a new day here after we got about 2.5 inches of rain this weekend. It's time for me to take the bottom end of the block off. First off, I started off by taking off the safety cable from the engine there. Just a couple tabs with some pliers gets that off. And here, this will be a 9/16 inch bolt. And then the 3 engine mount bolts are 1/2 inch bolts, and we'll have the engine off here pretty shortly. So I got the engine off. Again, just those 3 mounting bolts after you get the blade off. And it's sitting over here. I'll show y'all where the bottom end of the block is cracked yet again, pardon the sun. But you can see it right there. And so we've got 7 3/8 inch bolts here that I have to take off in order to get the bottom end off. It should slide right off, especially since this is a brand new mower. Everything's come off pretty easily so far. So we got the 7 bolts off here for the bottom end and got it popped off the gasket. Just had to use very little force to even do that. And so now it just slides on off, and we'll get the one from the donor engine and put the new one on. So I had the camshaft actually pop off when I pulled the gasket off. You have to be careful if that does come off to check to make sure that your timing is correctly, and in order to do that, you want to make sure that this little tooth here on the camshaft, if you can see it there, is lined up. In this case, there's a little indentation on the camshaft, and you want to make sure that they're lined up and that at top dead center right before the exhaust valve opens, so that you're not 180 degrees off. Pretty easy to do, but just have to be mindful so you don't have to take it back apart again. So I've got my donor engine over here. Very similar engine. Braking strap makes everything pretty similar with these overhead valves from the 300 all the way to the 725 series. As you can see, this one's 1 year old as of when I filmed this. It's the January 25th of 17, and this was made on the 25th of 16, and was blown up shortly after it was bought. So we got the bottom end from the donor mower off. You can see down there, you can see where the piston has come loose from the crankshaft, which is why that one doesn't run anymore. We've got it lubed up here with some sealer, and we're going to put our oil slinger back onto the camshaft here and to make sure that it attaches to the governor before we put this bottom end back on. Alright, so I got the 7 bolts back in, holding on the bottom end of the block here. They don't have to be tightened too tight. They can strip rather easily. I did one of those on the last engine that I did this to and had one of them strip. So let's get it back on to the mower now. Alright, so we got everything back together now. Got the blade back on. And now we just gotta wait a few hours for the sealant to dry on the engine, and we can put oil in it and start it up and see how she does. So I've waited a couple days here for the sealer to dry, and I've also put a new pull rope mechanism on it that matches what came on this mower originally. And I've also got it a little bit straighter on the handle here. It still isn't perfect, but that's probably about as good as I'm going to be able to get it. Might work on it a little bit more. And I've also put a new handle on it because there wasn't one on it when I got it. So let's got oil in it. Let's try out, see if it'll run. So it needed a little starter fluid, but I got it to crank up and run. But now I'll let you hear that I've still got to pull the deck out a little bit because it's hitting with the blade some. So the deck was actually hitting on the other side of the mower here than what I thought. You can see it took off some of the paint. I've got it bent back, and so it's not hitting anymore. We're going to start it up and see how it runs. And this is going to be a warm start since I've already ran it a little bit to test if the blade's hitting or not. So here we go. Runs good, and it's not hitting the deck anymore, which is perfect. This mower has definitely come a long way since we started on it. I'm happy with how it turned out too.